IP version 6 addressing summary. What did I learn in this module? IP version 6 address types. There are three types of IP version 6 addresses: unicast, multicast, and anycast. IP version 6 does not use the dotted decimal subnet mask notation like IP version 4. The prefix len is represented in slash notation and is used to indicate the network portion of an IP version 6 address. An IP version 6 unicast address unlikely identify an interface on the IP version 6 enabled device. IP version 6 address typically have two unicast addresses: global unicast address and local link address. IP version 6 unique local address have the following use. They are used for local addressing within a site or between a limited number of sites. They can be used for devices that will never need to access another network, and they are not globally routed and translate to a global IP version 6 address. IP version 6 Global Unicast Address or GUA are global, unique, and routable on the IP version 6 Internet. These addresses are equivalent to the public IP version 4 address, and GUA has three parts: global routing prefix, subnet ID, and interface ID. An IP version 6 link local address (LLA) enable a device to communicate with other IP version 6 enabled devices on the same network link and only on that link subnet. Devices can obtain a local link area either statically or dynamically. The next point is global unicast address and local link address static configuration. The Cisco IOS command to configure an IP version 4 address on an interface is IP addressing IP address subnet mask. In contrast, the command to configure an IP version 6 global unicast address on an interface is with the command IP version 6 address, the IP version 6 address with the prefix len. Just as with IP version 4, configuring a static address on clients does not scale to large environments. For this reason, most network administrators in IP version 6 network will enable the dynamically assign of IP version 6 addresses. Configuring the local link area manually lets you create an address that is recognizable and easy to remember. Typically, it's only necessary to create recognizable localink areas and routers. Localink areas can be configured manually using the IP version 6 address. With this command IP version 6 link local address link local command. The next tab is dynamic addressing for IP version 6 global unicast areas. A device obtain a GUI dynamically through ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol, in this case version 6 message. IP version 6 routers periodically send out ICMP version 6 router advertisement message every 200 seconds to all IP version 6 enabled devices on the network. And router advertisement message will also be sent in response to a host sending an Internet Control Message Protocol version 6 router solicitation message, which is a request for a router advertisement message. The ICMP version 6 advertisement message include network prefix and prefix len, default gateway address, and the DNS address and domain name. Router advertisement messages have three methods: Slack, Slack with a stateless DHCP version 6 server, and stateful DHCP version 6, not Slack. With Slack, the client device uses the information in the advertisement message to create its own global unicast address because the message contains the prefix and the interface ID. With Slack with stateless dynamic host configuration protocol version 6, the advertisement message subject device use Slack to create their own IP version 6 global unicast address. Use the router local link areas as the default gateway address and use a stateless dynamic host configuration protocol version 6 server to obtain other necessary information. With the stateful dynamic host configuration protocol, the advertisement suggests that device use the router localing areas as a default gateway address and the stateful DHCP version 6 server to obtain a global unicast address, a DNS server address, domain name, and all other necessary information. The interface ID can be created using the EUI64 process or a randomly generated 64-bit number. The EUI is processed use the 48 bits Ethernet MAC address on the client and insert another 16 bits in the middle of the MAC address to create a 64-bit interface ID. Depending upon the operating system and device may use a randomly generated interface ID. The next step is dynamic addressing for IPv6 local link areas. All IPv6 devices must have an IPv6 local link areas, and local link areas can be configured manually or created dynamically. Operating systems such as Windows will typically use the same method for both. Slack create global unicast address and dynamically using local link areas. Cisco routers automatically create an IPv6 local link areas whenever a global unicast address is assigned to the interface. By default, Cisco iOS router use this protocol to generate the interface ID for all local link areas on IPv6 interface. For serial interface, the router will use the MAC address of an Ethernet interface to make it easy to recognize and remember this address on routers. It's common to statically configure IPv6 local areas on routers. To verify IPv6 address configuration, use the following three commands. The first is show IPv6 interface brief. The second is show IPv6 route, and with the command ping. And the last tab is IPv6 multicast address. There are two types of IPv6 multicast address: well-known multicast address and solicited node multicast address. Assigned multicast address are reserved multicast address for predefined groups of devices. Well-known multicast address are assigned. Two common IPv6 assigned multicast groups are this and all nodes multicast groups with this address. All routers multicast groups. A solid-side non-multicast address is similar to the all nodes multicast address. The advantage of all solid-side or solicited node multicast address is that is mapped to a special Ethernet multicast address. And IPv6 addressing quiz. Which type of IPv6 address is not routable and used only for communication on a single subnet? That is link local address. Link local address have relevance only on the local link. Routers will not forward packets that include a link local address as either the source or destination address. What are the three parts of an IPv6 global unicast address? Okay, the general format for IPv6 global unicast address include a global routing prefix, subnet ID, and interface ID. So this is my bad subnet mask. Instead is global routing prefix. The global routing prefix is the network portion of the address. A typically global routing prefix is /48 assigned by the internet provider. The subnet ID portion can be used by an organization to create multiple network numbers. The interface ID is similar to the host portion on the IPv4 address. The next, what are two types of IPv6 unicast address: loopback and link local? Multicast, anycast, and unicast are types of IPv6 addresses. There is no broadcast address in IPv6. There is no broadcast address in IPv6. Loopback and link local are specific types of unicast address. Question 4. A company uses a Slack method to configure IPv6 address for an employer's workstation. Which address will a client use as its default gateway? The link local address of the router interface that is attached to the network. When a PC is configured to use the Slack method for configuring IPv6 address, it will use the prefix and prefix line information that is contained in the router advertisement message, combined with a 64-bit interface ID obtained by using the protocol 64 processor or by using a random number that is generated by a client operating system. To form an IPv6 address, it uses the link local address on the router interface that is attached on the local area network segment as its IPv6 default gateway address. And what are IPv6 ULA? A private IPv6 address range used for communication within a local site. IPv6 unique local address are a range of private addresses similar to requests for comments 1918 addresses, which can be used to address endpoints in a local network. They are not meant to be routable on the internet. Which address type is not supported by IPv6? This is broadcast. IPv6 support unicast, private, and multicast address but does not support layer 3 broadcast. Which service provide dynamic global IPv6 addressing to end devices without using a server that keeps a record of available IPv6 addresses? This is Slack. Using a stateless address auto configuration or Slack, a PC can solicit a router and receive the prefix length of the network. From this information, the PC can then create its own IPv6 global unicast address. At a minimum, which address is required on IPv6 enable interface? Only link local. All IPv6 enabled interface must at minimum have a link local address. Other IPv6 addresses can be assigned to the interface as required. Which type of IPv6 address refers to any unicast address that is assigned to multiple hosts? This is Anycast. The IPv6 specification includes Anycast address. An Anycast address is any unicast IPv6 address that is assigned to multiple devices. Which address is used to drive an IPv6 interface ID using this method? This is my bad. An IPv6 ID interface. An IPv6 interface ID using this method is generated by inserting the X digits between the first and last 24 bits of the interface MAC address and then inverting the 7 bits. Okay. With the MAC. This is the correct answer. Which ICMP version 6 Internet Control Message Protocol, in this case version 6 for the IPv6 message type, contain network configuration information for the client are performing Slack router advertisement. When performing Slack, IPv6 client receive network configuration information from router advertisement message that are sent by a local router. And the last question, how many bits of an IPv6 address are used for identify the interface ID? This is 64. An IPv6 address is split into a 64-bit prefix and a 64-bit interface ID. This is all for IP version addressing summary.